This is side one, take one of an interview with Major Joseph P. Valore, who was the company commander of India 3-4, which was the infantry company which initially went into Panama when Marine Forces Panama was established. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So, and that was in April of '88 when the things start heating up. What was the event that keyed the establishment of Marine Forces Panama? There was something there that happened at that time. Let's see, maybe I've got it here. Well, that's when there was a coup attempt, and Del Valle was kicked out, and that was in February as president of Panama, and then in March the economic sanctions imposed, and then there was a raid on the Marriott Hotel. Okay, had you been prepared beforehand for a contingency such as this?
Yes, we were part of the Air Contingency Battalion for that period of time, and in fact we were extended for I believe a month.
Okay, so 3-8 was the 3-4 rather.
3-4,
right. 3-4
was the Air Contingency Battalion.
Air Contingency Battalion. They didn't figure they needed a whole battalion down there, just a company.
Well, at the time, we were on the Air Alert Force as our normal rotation and sequence. And there was also an upcoming operation, Ocean Venture, which was going to be happening down in April. And we extended on the Air Alert Force. I'm not sure the reason why. But we had to deploy part of the battalion ahead of time for advanced operations for Ocean Venture. And my company was one of the last ones to be there, and we got some word toward the late end of March that things were heating up in Panama, but of course you hear the same things when you're in Air Alert battalions all the time, and the troops are always used to that. You know, we're going to go, this, that. Lima Company was already down at Ocean Venture, and Kilo Company, who had been prepping for a possible security force mission down in Panama. What triggered that intelligence thing, I'm not sure of. But eventually they had to chop some of their people down to Ocean Venture because they were still, it was really still, it was in a no-go state. And they weren't sure if anybody was going to go down to Panama, if it was going to be a company, if it was going to be a battalion. The colonel sort of was kind of making plans for deployment down there, but at the same time he had to keep preparing for Ocean Venture. Well, I finally got to the point by the time the 6th of April, I guess, rolled around, we flew out. We were the only company, full company left back here that could respond, and of course we were reinforced and augmented, and got the word about a week before, several days before we actually flew away.
Did you get briefed on the Panama situation before you went down?
We had some photos of the various installations, American installations, in and around the area that we would be going into.
And that was where? The area you're going into was where?
It was west of the canal, south and west.
Yeah, Rodman?
From Rodman to the west.
Is Rodman a town, or is it a...
Rodman's a naval air state, or a naval station.
Naval station.
Naval station, right around the canal, the western part of the canal.
Western part of the canal, okay. All right. Okay, you landed when? I've got...
on the, I believe it was the 6th.
6th. I've got the 6th of April, '88.
The 6th of April. Flew down, there was really...
Did you fly out of Cherry Point?
Right. And interestingly enough, prior to that, with the things heating up down in Panama, the battalion commander and the regimental commander had planned to do an exercise with a lot of what we felt would be similar circumstances should the battalion or anybody deploy down to Panama, security type missions. Intel did a lot of homework. We did some civil disturbance training. We went into an actual site, a multiple group of sites over at the Oak Groves, the old air facility out in town, and kind of put a scenario together where the companies would rotate in defending this fuel farm and the antenna site, have to deal with, you know, subversive elements, have to deal with civilian population, things like that. So it was kind of, we were spinning up for it. The colonel had it was a good exercise. We did a mount out to Cherry Point to practice embarking on the aircraft, and then from there, after either inspections, we moved out to Oak Grove for like a 2 or 3 day exercise where we practiced some of the same kind of things we thought we would be getting into down in Panama, based on the installations, the pictures, and the criticality of where they felt they would need to be protected, basically.
Where's Oak Grove? Right.
Right. It's right here at Lejeune. Out to the north.
Is that the combat village?
No, it's an airfield, like a used to be an old helicopter.
Oh, okay.
Airfield. It uses a training site. They're thinking about bringing AV-8s out there and using that, but there's some problems with the civilians out there.
Pardon me. I was told by some of the people I've spoken to that the company was extremely well trained and ready.
Yeah, we were. Colonel Rollins had the battalion, and Colonel Carroll and Colonel Livingston were regimental commanders during our tour. And Colonel Rollins is, you know, phenomenal Marine, and it was like focused everything on training all the time from the minute he took the battalion over in 85, 86. And we had done exercises, went to a CAX, 29 pounds, first of all when the battalion first formed in 86. It was pretty much all the company commanders had changed, the staff had changed, Colonel Rounds to go to Colonel Livingston. Most of the troops had come back from the first, they were the first special operations capable MEU at the time under Colonel Livingston, came back, Colonel Rollins took over. From there we did an exercise of 29 pounds, combined arms. Yeah. Moved to CAO here at Camp Lejeune. Moved down to Bridgeport, did cold weather mountain training, went to Fort McCoy, did a workup for the CG, took our McCress. Our McCress was one of the best McCress they ever saw around here, supposedly, from the staff on down to all the companies. And then we pumped over to Okinawa for a 6-month deployment in July, June-July time frame, 87. While in Westpac, that's all the company did was train. The first 2 months there, the colonel worked out a package where the companies would rotate, did training on hill operations in central training area, went up and did jungle training, survival, and patrolling up at the NTA, and then came down and did another sequence with just company tactics within CTA, three different packages. From there we deployed to Korea, did incremental training with the Rock Marines, and participated in bear hunt, a major training exercise up in Korea. Came back from Korea and did a NEO exercise aboard Okinawa, using Camp Butler and Camp Schwab. Then we came back and did other field operations, one on Air Contingency Battalion, and that's kind of where the battalion stood from there. The company during that, during the whole 6 months in Okinawa, pretty much with the exception of bear hunt, was the only major exercise we did, and the rest of the time was company commander's time. And the colonel, kind of designed it that way. A lot of training opportunities, but company commander sort of ran the sugar. It's a good time. The company was very cohesive. They've been together now since June, working with the same senior leadership, the commanders, platoon commanders, and the most of the staff NCOs when they went down to Panama. Fellows were well-trained company. Had a lot of live firing done up in Korea. Went to the CAX, fire support. It was well-trained. I had a good section of mortars, and most of my attachments from H&S company were pretty good. The stay team I had was exceptional.
That came down from land?
No, that was all in-house within 3-4.
Stay was in 3-4?
We had our own state platoon from H&S company.
Okay, I didn't realize it was in the manning level remained good. I tell you couldn't have done all these things if you had a lot of flailing around with personnel. You were stabilized.
Prepping, yeah. We were stabilized. We left with about 220 with attachments. We went down to Panama, and the company had been together, like I say, for that since June of '86. And most of the people in the H&S company have been together for a while. We had been working with these people on the Air Contingency Battalion probably for several weeks. There weren't too many additions at the end.
Okay, what happened when you landed in Panama?
Landed, we got established over at Rodman, and it was kind of interesting. Got a chance to read some of the message traffic. When we first went down, we got the company situated down at Rodman. Flew into Howard Air Force Base. On Howard Air Force Base, a hop skipping away from Rodman. Transported over to Rodman. They had established the gym. Initially put the company in until we got organized. Didn't really have a good feel for what the mission was going to be. And fortunately, I was able to meet with the Barracks CO that evening. Kind of talked to him about
Security Force Commander.
Security, right. At that time it was his Marine Barracks Panama. Then became Marine Security Force Company Panama.
That Major Keith?
Major Keith, right. Bumped into him, kind of talked to him a little bit what was going on, and then the next day I was able to go out with a vehicle and go visit the tank farm where we supposed we were going to be placed for the security mission. 6th and 7th. After that, I came back, met with the FAST platoon. There was a FAST platoon down there from land at the time.
That's Fleet Anti-Terrorist
Support team.
Support Team. Okay, right.
And they were a platoon. It was about 30 to 40 personnel under a lieutenant. Prior to most of the concerns about American lives and property down there, the tank farm post was held by two basically Marines from the barracks at the gate. Kind of just, you know, your standard check people in, check them out, but nothing else to do with with security. When they moved the FAST team down there, and because of the size of the tank farm, they had opted to go with just kind of mobile patrols and a couple outposts here and there. They already have a sufficient amount of people to cover it.
They have vehicles,
They
FAST
should be
Team?
covered. They had they may have had a couple trucks, I believe.
I thinking of their mission, I can't envision that they would have much motor T with them.
They did.
When were you given a mission, and when were you given the rules of engagement and so on?
You should know.
Yeah.
Like I said, on the evening of the 6th, met with the Barracks CO, Major Keith. On the 7th, had an initial planning conference and was given a basic operation order, very rough operation order by by Colonel Conley, who was a senior Marine in Panama. I got to take a tour of the tank farm where we were going to be going to with the lieutenant from the FAST team. He showed me what he had. I had talked with him, and I've also got my platoon commanders out. On the 8th, we actually moved out to the field. I issued my operation order to my company the evening of the 7th. On the 8th, we were on the ground. Now, at the time, there was a little bit of confusion regarding the chain of command, who was in charge of what. You know, they're still sorting that out. JTF was not established at this time.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the MEB, forward element of the MEB, this command element, the ground combat element was India Company. Major Keith works for the CO of Rodman, the naval station.
It was St. Nav South.
No, it's just he was just the Navy. He was a Navy captain.
Oh, okay.
And that's who Major Keith had worked for, and that the tank farm fell under control.
Okay, Marine Security Force, right.
Under the Navy. We also got a mission, and what they wanted to do was split the company because they were concerned about the Arahan tank farm is one of the potential areas where there would be some problems at. The Farfan antenna farm, which is a naval antenna farm over a section of Navy property, I guess, in adjacent to Howard Air Force Base, and they're concerned about increasing and upgrading the security at Rodman itself. And to do that, what the game plan was split the company up and take the majority of it, 2 platoons in the company headquarters, to the tank farm, which is the biggest mission. Have a squad, a reinforced squad stationed under a staff NCO at Farfan Antenna Farm, and then a platoon minus back at Rodman to assist the perimeter security. And then we planned to rotate platoons. And that's how everything was on the 8th, 9th.
What were you reinforced by? You were reinforced by the fast platoon?
No, the fast platoon now had left. They had other missions to do under the control of the barracks. My company went down. I didn't really have any reinforcement yet, except the initial reinforcements that I took down. I had of course, the company. An 81 mortar section, 2 mortars from H&S Company, a state platoon, had a counterintelligence team, interrogator translator team, had a squad of engineers from the division, had a scamp death sensors.
That came out of where? Land?
Out of the division.
Division?
Had a dragon section and a tow section. We had an artillery FO team, and I had a heavy machine gun squad from the weapons company in 3-4. And that's what we went in with. We reinforced with initially.
You're pretty well beefed up then.
I was absolutely. I was pleased with the assets I had and the people that were with me, and with the exception of the engineers, CIT, ITT, and the scamp death artillery FO team. A couple operators and a lieutenant, and the tow squad. Everyone else was in 3-4, all the attachments, so we had all worked together as a battalion for the past year and a half. One of the interesting things that wanted to get as much information as I could regarding the classified information on what the situation was. CIT and the ITT people had worked out of the barracks, which is, the barracks throughout was super. There was superlative in every kind of support aspect. I also had Lieutenant Murphy, who was the battalion's S2, very sharp officer down there for a while, and I used him back in the rear to sort out as much information or intel as he could pick up from the message traffic regarding the situation there in Panama. And every day I tried to come in and kind of read ahead of what the situation was, and some interesting things came out of some of the message traffic. For example, first of all, the fast platoon commander had briefed me that they had seen a lot of movement in the tank farm. They had identified, people in 2s and 3s for the whole time they were down there. I think they were there for about several weeks prior to us getting in there when they took over the mission. When they finally realized, I guess, that was a very easy and soft critical target. I guess a very small force of not too well-trained people could go in there and make a pretty big political statement with all the fuel that was in there as far as in the American, whole idea of hitting American property. So there was a lot of activity in there. Some other things in the message traffic that kind of got the wheels going was the fact that the tank farm, prior to hostilities really getting stiff, most of these areas were used by the Panamanian Defense Forces for various exercises. In this particular instance, the tank farm had been a couple months prior to April used as a training site for an infiltration exercise with some of the either UESAT or Macho de Montes personnel in the PDF. Number one, we're now in a country, potential hostilities could evolve. We're going to be going against people who have lived here all their lives, it's in their backyard, and the military probably knows more about the installations, the American installations, the terrain and everything associated with it than the actual American forces initially when they first got there. Interesting information. So they've been there before. They know it like the back of their hand. They've even used it as a training exercise. And one would lead the logical conclusion is the exercise probably could have been, placing demolitions or blowing up one of the tanks, whatever had to be done. They were probably again, much more familiar with the territory, terrain, the layout, and everything else than we were initially. You got to remember now, we landed the 6th, the 7th, or the evening of the 6th, kind of talked with the Barracks CO. The day of the 7th, I get a whirlwind tour of this tank farm, which is almost 2.5 clicks big. Issue an order, give my platoon commanders and some of the staff NCOs a walkthrough on the ground with the fast people. The next day, we're in business, split up with 2 platoons over at the tank farm, reinforced squad at Farfan, and a platoon minus down at Rodman. And we're in business. And now I'm reading this message traffic. Other interesting parts of the message traffic stated that the Navy had placed target priority. Something was going to happen. The most likely targets, I believe it was the first one was the Admiral's residence, and the second one, or the third one, was the Arhan tank farm, as far as likelihood of problems, sabotage, hitting it there. So once again, that kind of obviously made an impact on the way I was going to deal with the situation down there.
You set your CP up out at the tank farm?
Right. Looking at the terrain out there, obviously right from the get-go, we presented this pretty much up front, that the amount of ground out there that we had to cover, and if you're looking at the mission of basically protection of the tank farm itself, it was, even with a full company reinforced, it was going to be a very tough mission. It just wasn't designed, the way the terrain was, the way it was laid out for a reinforced company to really handle well. There'd be a lot of gaps, there'd have to be a lot of patrolling involved. It was more suitable easily probably to a battalion. We had gotten some, I guess, when we set it up, it went in with the idea that given the softness of the target, the fact that the people that we would be going against had a much better opportunity to know what they wanted to do with that and be familiar with the terrain. The fact that FAST had seen a lot of activity out there in 1s and 2s, he'd seen a lot of things trashing that around the area, and the fact of reading the message traffic, they had used as a training site for an exercise once before, and it was listed as a very high priority as far as if something was going to go down, it was going to happen down there. All these things kind of led me to believe how we're going to accomplish this mission. It's basically defensive in nature, a security type operations. One of the best things I had going for me down there, I think, is being the first company down there. I had a lot of leeway initially. It was like the Army's perspective, and this whole thing kind of.
Go ahead. I've got another critical remark to the Army.
Can I be frank in this? Or
Absolutely.
Is this going to be in-house?
It's in-house, but I wish you would.
The whole attitude was, first of all, the advantage was we were the ground combat element. Colonel Connolly, phenomenal commander. He let me be a commander down there. Supported me throughout this whole, evolution. The thing on our side was, though, it was kind of like there was a lot of things going on down there. It was a very minor, I would think, of concern at that particular time to like the sink in the Army and everyone else. And as far as that goes, the captain of the Navy station down there, the commander of Rodman Naval Station, my attitude going there is the first time I ever did anything for real. And you always wonder how you're going to do it, what you're going to do, and basically my first concern was obviously the mission, and right behind that, not to sound corny or anything, but the troops. But looking at all the background that I had on what was going on, and the fact that they deployed us down there for some reason, someone seemed to feel that things were getting critical down there. It's going to accomplish the mission, but not at the expense of the Marine safety. So the first thing I decided is how was I going to attack this? Was I going to set up like regular barracks type, with people walking around posts, and I, opted not to do that. Number one, the Marines would have been exposed. I just didn't want to do it that way. So I planned it as, I was initially going to do it as a patrol base, use patrol base operations, and rotate them throughout the 2.5 clicks down there at the tank farm.
Day and night?
Oh, absolutely.
You were in a combat mode while the other people were strictly in the garrison.
That's basically it. And like, I took, not from the Marine side, but from some of the higher, Army echelons down there, I took some heat for that, as far as remarks like, you're leaning too far forward, why are your people in, flak jackets and helmets? That's stupid. The reason your people are tired is you're working them too hard. It's like, and I used to go to grain of salt because they really, although they were my chain of command, the only one I reported to as things finally got settled was Colonel Conley, and he pretty much backed me the whole way through. The other issue I was concerned with is about how the weapons, how the weapons were going to be, the condition of the weapons. And I had specifically addressed it with Colonel Conley in our first meetings because I felt that the Marines should be able to lock and load, especially when they were going out on patrols, for the obvious reason. If something happens out in the jungle, it's a lot more difficult to start putting magazines in, charging them, or even if the magazines are anything without a round in a chamber.
Yeah. You
got a lot of noise, a lot of time. And I felt confident in the training of the Marines we would not have any accidental discharges. And we didn't while we were down there.
We were talking about Beirut before off the tape, but several people have told me that they definitely had a mindset that this was not going to be another Lebanon. Did this interest you?
Yeah, and like the Marines were real good about it, and that's one of the things that was kind of not so much Lebanon, just the fact that if I'm in my Marines walking around in jungles defending 37-odd tanks with 1.2 million gallons of JP5 raw gas and everything else in there, and we're on a military installation, nobody else has any business coming on there, not knowing how the Panamanians were going to react, how serious they were. I was just going against, using just good sound judgment as far as I was concerned in protection of the Marines and what I wanted them to do with. Plus, I think it lent them some credibility between them and me that I was hopefully going to take care of them, and gave them the trust and confidence that I had that they could walk around and do what they're supposed to be trained to do, go on patrol. So the only thing they would have to do if they got hit was flip it off safe, and they're ready to go to work. And I think that helped initially. And I brought that up to Colonel Conley because in talking with the barracks CO, the barracks policy was you could not have a round in the chamber, period. But I addressed that specifically with Colonel Conley, and he said, it was fine with him. And while we were out there, we began by like the patrol bases, but after a day or so, we opted to make semi-hardened positions because it was just, we were under observation. We're pretty much sure of that. Fast platoon was under observation. They knew that terrain better than we did. All right, so we could move every day and take the time to move and reestablish CPs, reestablish comm and everything else. But there was, I felt it was taking too much time away from the mission. Better to go in, find good positions, harden them, and then operate out of like strong points, with the focus being on the patrolling in the outposts. And that's kind of what we did. We broke it in half, the tank farm in half, gave each platoon like a TAOR, and then they patrol out of that. So things are kind of, we're still feeling our way as far as getting the patrolling sequence down, getting the Marines familiar with the terrain, hardening the positions. And there were a couple sightings of personnel in the area. Couldn't really determine if they were just locals because a lot of them would run or take off
This night or daytime?
during the day.
During the day?
Then the night of the 11th is when one of our patrols were out, and gunfire, gunfire occurred, and Corporal Valore was hit, and he was evacuated to Gorgas Hospital. Happened like around 11 o'clock on the 11th, transported to Gorgas in the early morning hours of the 12th. He died over there. That kind of got everyone upset. A lot of the Marines went and talked to the following day. At the same time, obviously the NIS was down there, and they were doing a lot of investigations, and there was all sorts of things going on. There were definitely intruders in there. They had spotted, they had got between two units. The patrol was separated. A trip flare went off. Some gunfire was fired at the, what they thought was where the enemy was at, or at the enemy, the intruders, I guess. And Corporal Valore got caught, but probably was one of the friendly rounds. The next day there was a lot of heat because everyone was under the impression that we shouldn't be out there walking around with loaded weapons and the same old things that normally surface when something happens, and it appears people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing out there.
I'd say General Warner, I guess, kind of poo-pooed the idea that there were intruders.
Well, that's a whole other story. Right now, what had happened was that day, the day after the Valore incident, the 12th, in the afternoon, Major Keith came out and kind of wanted the weapons, without rounds in the chamber. And at that point in time, he was not taking in my chain of command. And I had talked to him about, my discussion with Colonel Connolly, and what occurred the other night was not an accidental discharge. It was Marines firing at intruders, and one of the Marines was, got in the crossfire somehow. How? I don't know. It was like 11 o'clock at night when it happened.
Very dark.
Very dark. There was a trip flare that went off, and it was assumed that they were taking fire. They fired back. So at that time I said I discussed it with Colonel Connolly. By this time, of course, all kinds of rumors going around that, we were going to have to not. By this time the Marines had seen the intruders. Not all the Marines, but some of the Marines in the patrol. The day before they had spotted some. So they know people are out there. We gave them the intel situation so they would be on their toes, give as much information as they could, so they were well aware of the fact that the same thing we talked about earlier. It was a real-world mission. The tanks were very vulnerable, high priority target. We're down here now. It's up to us to prevent anything disastrous from happening. Then the word got around that we were not going to be able to go with weapons, loaded, and that was of some general concern to the Marines. Everyone I talked to them, platoon commanders, they said, no, we're not, as far as, until I'm told differently, we're going with the way we've been operating. I trust you guys, and I don't feel now it's, we can risk going out there with magazines out or rounds out in the chamber. So it was a long night, needless to say, for everybody with, Corporal Valore got shot. And we had sensors out. We got Army REMBAS sensors, and they augmented our SCAMP assets that were down there. We'd also had placed out, and we had a mobile unit that would monitor the sensors at our CP. And as soon as we moved in, also there were a lot of sensors going off. After a while, you became comfortable with how the sensors operate. They're not perfect, and a lot of times when our patrols were out, when we called their checkpoints, we could tell if it was us tripping them. A lot of times, by the way they were malfunctioning, you could tell it was a malfunction device. Humans. Other times, you had to make a distinction between animals, and the SCAMP people got pretty good about that. We were getting some sensor readings.
What kind of animals were down there?
There were all kinds of animals. There were monkeys. There was panthers. We saw panthers.
Oh, really?
Pumas, panthers, I guess it was. It was one that was hanging around the CP for quite a while. A lot of monkeys. The lizards. forget what they were called, the Bushmaster snakes.
Oh, really?
Cordylands, fertilance snakes,
Fertilance.
Bushmasters, scorpions.
Mm.
They got quite a bit of those in and around the area. So
Anyone-
coral snakes.
Jeez.
So they were all over the place. And another thing we had to contend with was the hunters in the area, because with the economy the way it was, there were a lot of hunters coming in, and some of the best places to hunt were the military installations, because not a lot of people usually went in there. And one of the, later on, we were down there, we detained several hunters, and one of the ones that they interrogated, the question is after the firefight and everything's on the 12th, was, why are you coming in here? It's military property, American military property, people have been shot out here. There's a risk involved here. Why have you been coming? I'm sure everybody knows about this. And the response was, my family's starving, and frankly, I'm going to take the risk to feed them. So I had to deal with that also. So there was quite a bit of animals in and around.
Anyone get bit by snakes at all?
No, we had no snake bites. They're pretty careful, pretty cautious. They've been to Okinawa and gone through
The habus.
the habus and everything else, so
Yeah.
they were pretty savvy. Like I said, the company had been together for a long time. They'd been in the jungle before in Okinawa for extended periods out in the field. They did the simple things, check your boots, and going in their holes, they kind of checked them out, and kicked out the spiders, things like that. And there were some snakes found in the holes. They were dispatched. But we didn't have any problems with snake bites. We had a couple problems where there was a black pine, I guess, down there also that caused a lot of swelling, and on the patrols a lot of times we had a couple probably spider bites and some black pine. Where a couple of Marines had swollen necks and things like that. But they
From the pitch or?
from these from the needles on the
Oh, I see.
on the cones that were in there in the jungle.
After this Villa Hermosa was killed, after that first around, I understand that Noriega just opened up his propaganda machine.
Right.
Accused the Marines of
Right.
being unprofessional
Right.
and shooting at shadows and everything.
Right, that's exactly it. And the company took it, with a grain of salt. It was kind of depressing. It was even more depressing at the time. We hearing some of the reports, and of course some of the tapings that we got from back here in the States after what had happened. Now this didn't happen until after the 12th, when the firefight happened out there, and then we got stood down to go back in and get briefed up and refitted to come back out. And by that time CNN had reports and people were watching the news, and it was the most discouraging thing was the fact that the American press, it sounded like they were like, the only information coming out of Panama was what Noriega was saying, and it was like the American press were kind of going toward that they're talking about, firing at shadows and everything else, kind of just reiterating what Noriega said, not really giving us a fair shake, but in a lot of respects, especially after the 12th, a lot of things happened on the 12th that I think helped the company as far as morale was good the whole time. Morale took a little dip after Villa Hermosa was shot, but fortunately or not, right afterwards, for whatever reason, is when we were probed by significant numbers on the evening of the 12th, and we did what I thought was a very credible job.
What time did they start?
The Marines really bounced back well, and after that it was like we knew what had happened, we knew what we saw, we knew what we did, and if the press was going to play those games, so be it. Some of the things, the way things were handled down there, all the presses, the press things and releases that came afterwards. Interesting enough was it was an Air Force, I believe an Air Force PAO officer who had never even been in the tank farm, was the one acting as the spokesman for what had happened on the evening of the 12th. And during part of the briefings, that when he was asked who was the senior commander on the ground initially, he didn't even know who it was. Yet he was telling the world what had went on, everything else. I never even met the guy, never even saw him, never talked to him. So by this time, this is on the 12th now, we started getting reports that there was some activity.
What time?
This happened about 1730, 1800, and it was still relatively light, just getting toward dusk. And by this time we were getting a little more comfortable with the fact that yes, people are out there, and we'll see how the situation develops. Well then, in a period of about 30 minutes, I got 4 or 5 reports coming in that, you know, now it wasn't 2s and 3s, they were seeing whole groups of what appeared to be military personnel on the installation moving around. And at this time, it seemed like something was definitely happening. So I located my CP to my first sergeant, and located myself, radio operator, and a security Marine with me. Went out and located where all these reports were coming from. At this time, we had a state platoon, or the state team was out on the western sector of the tank farm, about 700 or 800 meters away from where the tank farm actually was. I had one patrol from 3rd Platoon headed out toward Howard, direction of Howard Air Force Base, to the rear of the tank farm. And 1st Platoon was just starting to send out their patrol for the evening when all these reports started coming in. So I moved up to the front, took my first sergeant. This time it was getting dark and hazy, and I saw, you know, at least a dozen intruders down near one of the tanks between the Pan American Highway, Bachelor Highway, and the tank farm itself. This time I was convinced that, you know, hey, this is a little more serious, something is happening. And of course, a lot of things flashed through your mind. The first thing I wanted to do was pretty much consolidate what we had, call back the patrol from 1st Platoon, and alert 3rd Platoon. It was toward the rear of the company area, and that really involved where all the action was apparently coming from. There was a ravine, there was a Thatcher Highway, a fence, chain link fence, a ravine, a sparse jungle, and then it entered into the tank farm. The tank farm, 37, 39 tanks spread out all over about 2.5 clicks.
How is the terrain around a tank farm? Is that
the tank? It was surrounded by jungle. The only thing on the map that showed that where the American installation was a dashed line signifying this is, you know, the Arahan tank farm. It included the tank and several hundred meters perimeter around, which is, you know, pure jungle. The only enclosure was the fence that ran across Bachelor Highway to the front of the tank farm, which is open, you know, pretty much on both ends, and there were holes and gaps in it. Everything else was strictly jungle. There was a bazillion avenues of approach for infantry to come in from anywhere, from the north, the west, the east, whatever they chose. So now we've pretty much got the 1st Platoon's patrol, and it's dark now, and we have night vision devices out there we're looking at, and my first sergeant's kind of keep me abreast of the movements, what's going on, plus I'm hearing reports from within the within 1st Platoon's area. It looks like now they're starting to move around. I don't know if they were coming around on the flanks, but that was some of the reports you're getting from 1st Platoon. While this is happening, I get a call from the state team that's out now, and they're about 13 strong with a corpsman, and they're reporting that now they're in the middle of the jungle, about 700 meters away from friendly lines, on their own, and they were setting into a position out on one of the fingers, and they're reporting now they're getting probed, they're getting, you know, movement. Next thing I know, we get some fire from down in front. A few rounds go off down in front where we saw these people at last. We returned some fire with small arms. Next thing I get, the state platoon calls in. It was like, there now. Some trip flares they had put out are now popped, and they see the intruders 700 meters out there in the jungle. And request for permission, to engage. By this time, Sergeant Cooper is whispering over the radio. So we've taken some fire in the front right now. 1st Platoon is pretty much consolidated. I'm up there with them where I can overlook where most of the activity appears to be. And off to my left flank, 7 meters away now, I'm getting information leading. There's a 10 to 15 people coming on my state platoon. He requested some mortar fire because when the flares went off, they were responding like you would expect soldiers to respond. They were freezing, they were getting down in that, and it was kind of like slowing their approach up. So he requested for some illumination. We'd already pre-plotted targets throughout our area. I was playing it like a regular situation with the 81s. We stood up the 81 mortars. They were up within 2 minutes, the gun line back at the CP. And we started running illumination missions. At this time, Sergeant Cooper calls back, and it was like, they're still moving. It appeared they were trying to surround the state's position out there. We received fire again. That didn't happen till after the state platoon. He was calling for some HE. He felt he needed it. At this time, it was like, once again, listening to him over the phone. Sergeant Cooper was well experienced. He'd been in state a long time. Probably one of the best sergeants around. He knew his business, and if he felt, he was pretty savvy. If he felt that things were getting to the point where they were moving on him, they were moving tactically on him. It wasn't a matter of they were not hunters. He was convinced of that. They were reacting. They had weapons poised. I said, fine. So I gave him permission to fire. We started running fire missions out on pre-plotted targets into that area, and he would call back some of the adjustments, and I'd work it through him to me to the mortar line. So now we've had a loom going off. We've had some HE going off, and Sergeant Cooper then requested he had to open because they were closing in very close on him. Gave him permission when he felt, when he felt they were in that jeopardy, they started firing to open up. A few minutes later, the next thing I knew was like all hell broke loose over on where the state platoon was.
Who are you reporting up to? Were you reporting to anyone else?
Yeah, at this time when this all first started. Backtrack. When it first started, and when I went out there. Well, people down the tank farm. Now I got Sergeant Cooper saying he's got a force that appears to be bigger than he is. They're armed. They're maneuvering tactically on him. Hey, all bets were off. When this initially started, once I found it, I saw it for myself. I wanted to verify for myself. Yes, I mean my Marines aren't getting excited, getting jumpy after Villarosa got shot. What's going on out there? And I kept getting these reports like never before. This many in a short period of time. What's going on. Once I verified it, I got on the horn with Murphy, who was Jim Murphy, the 2 down there, the Battalion 2 came down with me to act as my XO, and told him, Murph, here's what's going on. We're getting a lot of activity. I mean, we're estimating now between what Cooper had said and what the Marines were seeing, and I had verified some. We're looking now. It looks like it's pretty significant. He initially thought I was kidding. He thought I was pulling his chain. And I said, no, Murphy, no, I'm serious. I have the react force standing by. The reaction force is detailed back at the barracks, which are supply, a reaction force. I say have them standing by in case I need them, and if we do, I need them to meet up at the gate down at the entranceway. I'll have somebody down there to guide them in if we need them. By this time, Colonel Connolly had been on the net, and I was talking to him also. So this time, Colonel Connolly knew as far as I was concerned. That's it. The barracks knew, Murph knew. He was taking in mind. Now this time, everybody's on my net, monitoring the net. After Sergeant Cooper's firefight went on, we took some more rounds from the front, and at that time, all bets were off, and we opened up with them with a Mark 19 that was available. I knew there was a ravine down there. That's probably where they were staging it. I didn't know how they were using the ravine to work around us, if they had charges planted. They were on, actually, one of the tanks, the far end of the farm, earlier. And once the second shots came out, we opened up with a machine gun and a Mark 19. That's probably the first time Mark 19 was used, and it was devastating. It was devastating. It was phenomenal. And their first sergeant, kind of controlling the fires there. With the Mark 19, we raked basically the ravine to our front, down to where the last tank was. Beyond the tank, mortars had come down near there as a result of Sergeant Cooper calling in missions. After the HE missions, things appeared to cool down from Sergeant Cooper's perspective.
Now, while it's firing, you're not that far away from Rodman and the canal.
No, as a matter of fact, they said in talking to people afterwards, they were playing a softball game at Rodman under the lights, and some people noticed that over there near up the road a ways there was fireworks going off. So people knew that that there was something happening. This lasted for several hours. The situation appeared to be relatively stable now. After we opened up with the Mark 19 and Sergeant Cooper opened up and we dropped the mortars, things started to calm down and see a whole lot of activity. While this was happening, one of the generals from the Army, now this is before Joint Task Force Panama was stood up. Southcom, I guess, it was the...
General Warner?
Yeah, General Warner. It was General Lefke.
Lefke.
Who was a 2-star. Right. Southcom was General Warner.
JTF was General Lefke.
Yeah, but they had not established the JTF yet. I think Colonel Connolly at that was some part of the chain of command. The Joint Task Force Panama was not established yet at that time. It was the Army Southern Command, I guess it was.
Oh, USARCO.
USARCO, right, okay. Yeah, that was a siege. Well, he had come out by this time and had moved back to my CP, which is back further. One of my Marines took him back there. And while the firing was going on, he finally worked his way up to me, finally found out where I was. He went to the CP first. My XO was running the CP from back there, which was also at that time probed. There were some people back in the CP. It appeared down the ravine around there, so while the mortars were going, the XO was kind of taking charge of the defense of the CP. By this time, General Lefke came in and was pretty much upset. Didn't know what was going on, really didn't like what was going on, didn't realize we were shooting mortars and everything else. It was like, wanted to know who was in charge and where he was, and the XO said, hey, he's not here, sir, he's up at, up near 1st Platoon's area where everything's going on at. It's like, who authorized to do all this? And he said, hey, the company commander did, sir. General Lefke was in civilian attire at the time, so Maxo initially didn't know who the hell this guy was, where he's coming from, and it was like, and he identified himself, I guess. By this time, probably around 2000, 2030, General Lefke finally eventually gets up to me, and I kind of briefed him on the situation, and he shuts everything down, told me to cease firing, and it said that he had talked with or had communication with the Panamanian Defense Forces. When this thing was going down, he was going to have someone here to assure us that there was nothing going on, and that these were not, there were no Panamanian Defense Forces in the area. This was not being done by them, and on and on and on.
Who was it supposed to be done by?
Nobody knew. And just once again, well, these guys are, they're jumpy, they're itchy, they're trigger happy, they're this, they're that, whatever. And it wasn't specifically said, but that was kind of the...
What are you saying about the Marines?
The general consensus. And, I can operate with anybody, but, the biggest thing in my mind was to accomplish the mission, take care of the troops, and for whatever, not embarrass the Marine Corps. I mean, we were the only company down there. It was the hottest thing going. I felt, privileged, honored. The right place, the right time. Here it is, Valore. Don't screw it up. And that was pretty much my mentality the whole way through. That's why I want, sir, I need to have the weapons loaded. I felt that was important. When we went in there, we didn't take it as, hey, here's, we just kind of set up a little hooch here and kind of drive around a little bit.
CPX type.
Right, and I was concerned. For all I knew was these people, for whatever reasons, good possibility, they were going to come in here, target a tank farm. Why else are we down here The intel traffic says it was used as a training objective and in one of their exercises for some of their high-speed people, the UESAT or Macho de Montes. It's rated up there at a 15 on the Navy's list of most likely areas to get probably 2 or 3. You know, it's a very easy to take out if somebody's not paying attention to what's going on. And when these tanks goes up with gasoline, JP5, JP4, whatever, a lot of Marines are going to go with it. And I'm not going to be the one they say, hey, Valore was out there, and the reason why, you know, this all this shit happened was because, you know, he was tactically unsound, he wasn't taking it seriously or anything else. You know, so sure, you know, it's an awesome responsibility. You got 200 and some Marines, and they trust you, and they're dependent on you. And, you know, you can't let them down. And the rules of engagement, we went down to the rules changed so, you know, so many times. It was like, we went down initially, you don't shoot unless you're fired upon, period. That kind of, you know, ruffled the Marines a little bit, but, you know, you talk to them, you explain to them, hey, it's the way it is, there's really no problem, you know, and all this other stuff. In the back of my mind, though, you have the right, you know, the inherent right to self-protection. If you felt your Marines were in jeopardy, if you felt you were in jeopardy, that's what you're out there for as the commander. You make the call. So, yeah, they're not shooting yet, but, you know, are you going to wait till they're within grenade range, and they're not going to shoot, they're just going to lob a grenade at you?
Bayonet range.
If you see them moving on you, and that was the situation with Cooper. And it was like, and I'm not out there, but he's dependent on me. He wanted some mortars, you know, he wanted to open up, and I'm not there. And I trust him, I depended on him. Am I going to sit there and say, okay, no, Sergeant Cooper, and, because, you know, in my mind, that was it. Here it is. You know, either you follow what the rules say, or, you know, you're on the ground, you're getting out there, you make decisions, your Marines, you know, are doing a job, they're in jeopardy, I'm not going to tie their hands. And then we'd taken some rounds earlier, all bets are off, fine, do it. I was out there, I saw them, and they weren't hunters, and they weren't locals. They had, you know, they had equipment, they had weapons, and they were maneuvering not like civilians, they're moving like military. Cooper said the same thing, and that's the call, you know, we made at the time. But now Lefke's out there, General Lefke, and he brings up this Captain Cortizo, who was pretty close with Noriega, I guess. He at one time had commanded the Macho de Montes. I think he was on the staff now, but educated at West Point,
Anti-American.
fluent in English, could speak English better than I could probably, but very, you know, like exactly you said, hated Americans. And he brings this clown out here with a couple bodyguards, and he's beating his gums with General Lefke, and assuring us that, you know, nothing's going on, those aren't his people, da 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 da. And General Lefke seems pretty much convinced that this is all like, you know, something's wrong here, you know, these guys, I got the PDF right here as if, you know, what do you think this guy's going to say? So we were able to pull in the stay team. We got them back in. We also got some covert, or it's got covert, but we also got some helicopters up earlier to kind of help out, but they couldn't help with nothing because they weren't armed at all. And sort of the dust started settling. General Lefke declared a ceasefire. You know, no other movements. You know, I'm the general. That's it. Shut it down. Okay. And by this time, then, you know, he had left and had gone back. And now it's about, at that time Stay came in, and then people started talking. It was probably around 2300.
You recover any bodies, or?
Now, when we went down to, when we spotted with night vision goggles, some of the Marines said they had saw people out there pulling bodies away. We got the word we could not go down. Could not go down regarding to stay where you were at and don't move down. And that probably, the whole thing, probably one of the biggest mistakes I probably made was just automatically not going down or else requesting the permission. But he had said no further movement, directed a ceasefire. Everything else, it was like he had, the PDF was there, and when we requested to go down, he said no, don't do it. That was probably the only reason should have maybe not even requested you went down there, but at the time it was like a lot of things had happened so fast. I was more worried about getting the state patrol back in getting my line stable, getting accountability for everybody. We knew areas that for pretty much the whole time of the firefight. Once the patrol came in from 1st platoon, 3rd platoon, still had a patrol out. We told them to just sit where they were at, go to ground where they were at until we sorted this thing out. And then the next day we came in, stayed up most of the night, watching the area. At about 01 or 01:30, I went back to the barracks where they had most of the senior officers from everywhere in there, and they were doing the after-action briefs and kind of what went down. They talked to me a lot, very positive comments, looked like they were interested in everything else. We did a pretty good job. There was an admiral in there. General Lefke had left earlier, but there were a lot of bird colonels. It was like packed. Went back to the company. Next day got the word they're going to stand us down, come back in, and they're going to replace us for a couple of days so we get, they wanted to talk to the troops and everything. They replaced us with an Army unit. And what they brought in was to replace us out there for the same mission that everybody, apparently was poo-pooing and saying, no, that wasn't really military people out there and all sorts of stuff. It was interesting. They brought in an Army battalion with reinforced with the scout platoon of battalion headquarters to take over the same area, the same mission that we had been assigned with initially. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Went back to Rodman, stood down for a day, several days, 2 days, I think. A lot of NIS people there, a lot of Army intel people there interviewing the troops, seeing what went on, and so on and so forth. This is when we started getting all the, watching the television of the troops, the mess hall and things like that, about what was going on down in Panama. Marine shot, and then the next night, boom, a firefight, and then all this shit coming out, the propaganda mill from Noriega saying, yeah, they're shooting the trees, they're shooting each other, nobody's in there, they're untrained, they're green troops, da-da-da-da-da-da. You get Stanions, whoever it was, the spokesman for Southcom, whoever, talking to reporters about what happened on the 12th. He wasn't even there, never interviewed me or anyone else that was down there. Didn't even know who the senior commander was on the ground when all this thing happened. Didn't know the rank, didn't know the name. But he made one of the comments about we're replaced by more experienced Army troops.
Yeah.
Whatever that's supposed to mean, because they were there in Panama, stationed in Panama, whatever. But that kind of got out. So the Marines were kind of a little pissed off. But the biggest thing that I'll never forget is they were all pleased with the fact that we were dropping rounds. They were pleased with the fact that nobody was stifling them to fire.
Who's they?
The Marines.
Marine.
Just a small anecdote was I got toasted in the club just out of the blue, the 13th when we were down there taking some recovering, and it was like a real vote of confidence because it was probably the highlight of my career. The Marines, I was figuring, how are you going to be related to your Marines? They're going to trust you. There's a certain amount of bond, and what happens. But the fact that we were dropping rounds, they were danger close. Marines are opening up. The kid on the Mark 19, when they got the word to open up, it was like after the first, several bursts, it was a big Yahoo! Yelled it out. I mean, the tension was there. It was released. I think I gained their credibility. They knew I was going to stand behind them, and if whatever it took, rules of engagement, whatever, it was our call, and we were going to do what we had to, be done. They could depend on me, to look out for them and not so much play politics or worry about other things at the time. You had a mission to accomplish, you got to take care of your Marines. I wasn't going to tie their hands. I had that kind of confidence in them. The very fact we opened up that night, because the Marines saw them. They were there. They were making the reports. I saw them. Before I would have done something like that, I would have, initially, if I didn't see anything, I would have been a lot more cautious. Mm-hmm. But now I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? They found out a Marine was killed here last night. Maybe now they think that we're going to, be all upset and worried, and we're not going to be as well trained as Marines are known to be. So I'm going to come in and really make a statement and take out a platoon or take out a tank or do something really and just add insult to injury, rub, America's face in it, whatever. So there's a lot of things going through my mind. And then, of course, when I hear a Marine on the radio the other end out there 700 meters away in a jungle, whom I know pretty well, trust his judgment, trust his combat skills, and he's telling me, sir, I need some fucking mortars. He's whispering, almost crying over the fucking radio. Yeah, that's it. And like, I was fully expected after the way things were going down, as how possibly to be relieved. I just didn't,
Yeah, Skip Clarkson said that the people that were coming in, the intruders, were very professional, dressed in black gear.
Absolutely.
And
these weren't your average run-of-the-mill sovereign dignity battalions. They weren't the local PDFs. Reading what we had read about, my estimation was talking, it was like either the UESAT or the Macho de Montes, one of the higher speed, companies. The UESAT kind of like our Force Recon, and the Macho de Montes, their premier men of the mountain or company. Very well trained, probably the best.
UESAT, did you say?
UESAT. UESAT, UESAT, I believe that's the term they use for there. It's like they were out on Flamingo Island.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
At the end of the commandancy, way out by themselves. Mm-hmm. They were Israeli trained, pretty much comparable, I guess, to our Force Recon, pretty much high-speed people. I didn't really know who it was. All I know is I saw them, the reports I got, what I saw, they were operating like military. Reports from Sergeant Cooper, they were doing it. Plus, we had seen them before. We had seen some people in black during the day. We were out there, no doubt in my mind. And I don't care what anybody else said. That was it. The Marines are in trouble. We had a mission to accomplish, and we did what had to be done. I think that kind of really gelled the company. They knew, we were going to do our job. We were going to take care of each other, and they really could give a shit about what everybody else was saying. And they kind of talked to them. It was like, at some point in time, it's all going to come out. You know what you did, I know what you did, and just, leave it at that.
Colonel Connolly fully supported you?
Absolutely. Colonel Connolly was phenomenal. Colonel Connolly ran so much interference for me. It was just, incredible.
How about Major Keith? Had he come around by this time?
Yeah, Major Keith was good. He was good the whole time. He was just concerned, the one night about the weapons being loaded. And see, if I would have, succumbed to that without kind of putting it off and wanted to talk to Colonel Connolly before I did it, we would have been out there that night with patrols out, lock and load. At least Cooper's people were down on a hide. They were ready and waiting. All they do is put the selector switch on fire and they were ready to go. Not trying to charge magazines, insert magazines, charge weapons, everything else in the middle of the night in the jungle out there.
At one time, did the Army want you to have all your weapons in one place and all the ammo boxed in another place? And
that could have happened. Like I say, Colonel Connolly ran a lot of interference. I know when the Army units came out, it was like there were some Army units that had like magazines taped over the top so they wouldn't lose any rounds. It was like, interesting. But that was the extent of the 12th. And after the 12th, things started to calm down for a long time. And of course, we had all kinds of reports of the casualties and what supposedly was happening.
Did you find any blood the next day?
No.
No signs, like...
No real significant signs, no.
Did Intel pick up any casualty figures on the intruders?
No, I never saw any of the message traffic on that afterwards. There was a lot of rumors floating around. I don't know how much was true or not. I was sure there were some casualties. There had to be. The kid in the Mark 19 swore that when one of the Mark 19 rounds detonated and made that flash, it was on somebody's chest.
What's that? A 40 millimeter, isn't it?
40 millimeter, right? Automatic grenade launcher. So there was no doubt in my mind. Then, of course, Colonel Puckett, who was there, would come up with the resupply of ammo. Later on during the night, they had saw ambulances with blackout lights being escorted by PDF going down the Bachelor Highway. The next several days, there were reports of body bags being dropped into the ocean, whatever. But nobody ever knew. The Marines are pretty much confident, and I was seeing how many people were down. It appeared there was a goodly sum, and where the Mark 19 rounds landed. I mean, I can't imagine somebody not getting hurt.
Then what happened?
Well, I said we stood down for a couple of days, and then it was business back to usual. By this time, they took us out of the FAR fan and the requirement to augment Rodman security, so I got that platoon back, and I had to keep just one platoon now as a reactionary force for COMMAR 4, because he had other areas now to include Howard Air Force Base, and Army unit attached to him to do that, us at the tank farm. In the magazine area across from the tank farm, he had an MP battalion from the Army attached to him.
When did Task Force Semper Fi begin at this time?
No.
It's much later.
No, yeah, much later. That was never established. We were down there. But after the incident on the 12th, that's when JTF Panama was formally established. Now it was Joint Task Force Panama, commanded by General Lefke, and then COMMAR 4, Command of Marine Forces Panama, was underneath General Lefke in our area of operations, that being basically the area west of Howard Air Force Base, the tank farm, and the magazine area across the tank, the naval magazine area.
You were still patrolling up in the tank farm area?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That was never. We never had too much problem with that. After that night, we started getting serious about digging in. Took a look at the tactics we were using. We were still patrolling day and night, reinforcing the positions, and outposting the positions where we get one outpost with about 6 Marines, so they could relieve each other and stand to at the various times of the night, could watch a majority of the tanks. There's no way we could put a Marine in every tank. Fortunately, some of the tanks were empty in the process of they were empty, haven't been filled yet, so we kind of sectioned those off as less critical areas, but the very critical portions we stepped up overwatch positions, LPOPs, in locations where we could kind of view the critical tanks day and night. And each platoon would go out during day patrol and one night patrol in their KOR, varying the patrol. They would meet every morning, and, put out the patrol routes. State platoon then would do a patrol between the other 2 TAOR patrols. So I would have basically a different patrol going out every night at varying times. The only thing we had to do as far as deception was put the patrols out. Patrol screen to me was extremely important. We couldn't stay there in a static defensive position, let them come in any way they want throughout these various avenues of approach. Put the patrol screen out there, keep the LPs manned within to keep an eye on the tanks. Then you got the patrol screen out, different patrols, different times on nights. And I would rotate my tow vehicles with their night vision capability, the thermal scopes, to augment the LPOPs every night. After a while, we got dog teams from the Air Force that were attached, and I would pick them up every night, and we'd station those in different locations. We also had support from the Air Force, the special ops people at the Air Force. We were given beacons to have on our patrols, and there was one of their 130s that had a night infrared capability that we could call. We did practice training with them at night, lighting up various areas in the jungle, into the canopies, picking up on my patrols. We're using the beacon to them. So things moved along pretty well. And then after about a few weeks, the probing in that started to pick up again, but never
same extent.
Never to that extent at all. No. Once again, 2s and 3s, sensors being tripped off.
Was there any possibility of any, say, the 81s impacting on the tanks, exploding the tanks, or were they?
No, I knew where the pre-planned targets were. I was clearing the missions up at the front where I was. I know what Cooper had. Cooper already plotted it ahead of time for his patrol. The 81s had it back that we had gone over all this. Like, that was the first thing. Once again, it's like, how are you going to play this? You got to play it for real. So I'm assuming that's the way it is. So we set up when we decided to go with the defensive positions in the outpost and patrolling. We set up, our own little fire support center there with the 2 mortars. Had them stood up, ready to go. Had targets plotted with the data on the guns as best we could, and everything was good to go. The base plates were seated, and that was it. So all these things were done between the 7th and the 12th. And when the first HE went down, it was like I held my breath because I didn't know what the hell was where it was going to land, how good my 81's people were. And where they were calling in the fires, it was between Thatcher Highway. Of course, there was civilian traffic on the highway. a lot of things I really wasn't thinking about. The only thing I was thinking about is, hey, we got what appears to be a pretty substantial, relatively speaking, intruder force here. They're doing things pretty well, and I got a whole 13-man patrol out there, you know, which appears to be about to be engaged. And the patrol leader, once he's got his targets, he looked at them, checked out where they were. 81s had them plotted, kind of like, whatever it is, go for it. And they did, and they were danger close. We saw somebody impacts pretty close. You could hear it, you knew where they were hitting, and it was pretty damn close to the highway. But fortunately, no civilians were. After a while, the kind of traffic, there was no traffic. They eventually got it blocked off at least Rodman's end. But yeah, all these things kind of went through my mind, but it was like, they're 81s, that's what they're trained to do. They had a couple days to put the targets together, look at them. The section stood up pretty quick. They did the Illume. The Illume missions were going relatively well, just where Cooper wanted them, and it was forcing the intruders to kind of stop and kind of regroup. And then when after the HE went down, it was like
you didn't have any canopy to worry about. I beg your pardon?
There wasn't too much activity after that over Cooper's place. Yeah, it was canopy. In the tank farm there wasn't, but in the outside the tank farm, I mean, just, you know, it was pretty thick. It wasn't triple canopy or anything like that. It was just, you know, it's just single canopy.
Pretty rugged.
Oh yeah, a lot of trails, a lot of ravines, a lot of hills, a lot of cliffs. It was like, it's jungle, pure jungle. And like, you know, the jungle permeated and came into a lot of the tank farm. The tank farm wasn't open. It was open in some areas, and then the jungle would penetrate in whole sections of it. And on the other side of this little thing with the jungle on it was another group of tanks. Elephant grass all over. Some tanks were low, some tanks were high. It was a real challenge to keep track of them all. And, you know, and some of them were eroded. We got Seabees to come in and help reinforce some where the land water had eroded part of the tank, so the tank was bare. It was only a half-inch steel. And, you know, I was thinking an RPG round could have gone through that. So you had a couple sappers come through the elephant grass, which permeated throughout the tank farm. They got caught very easily and took out a tank, and now I got Marines near a tank. The way some of the tanks were, the exposed tank, it was on a hill, so if it would have blown, you got 1 million gallons of, I guess that was JP5, rolling down to the lower areas where the Marines were at. So
were the Marines beyond the tanks? You had Thatcher Highway, the jungle, the fence.
There's a tank farm the way it was. This was the tank farm area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is Thatcher Highway,
mm-hmm.
Pan American Highway. This is going toward the Panama Canal. Mm-hmm. Rodman's down this way. This is a Denny station over here, a PDF Denny station or police station, which we figured excellent opportunity for intelligence. They could, you know, move patrols out of there. They can just watch traffic coming back and forth the highway and tell what was going on to a certain extent. So we had to be kind of careful down this direction.
Where was your egress to the tank farm? How did you get into the tank farm?
Tank farm came into to the gate right here.
Right there.
And across the street was the
animal supply point?
The ammunition area. And they have the magazine.
So you were up here, but you also had Marines on the other side?
Throughout the tank farm.
Throughout the tank.
Yeah. We worked up a numbering system for the tanks, which I guess they used the whole time as far as I know. They're probably still down there. A lettering and numbering system, east and west, and that would help identify, instead of using grid coordinates, that would help identify the tanks where everything was at. So I broke it down into a TAOR here, platoon on this side, platoon on this side. My CP was right here, pretty much centrally located. At one of the platoons down in this area when they rotated, the other platoon up here on the high ground. And then we have LPs here, LPOPs, they're going to call them, in the vicinity of tanks. And see, a lot of times the tanks were like, it was like a big golf course, and they were like little mounds, smooth mounds with a flat top. So to view a lot of them, if you went back into the jungle, you backed off away from the tank, you couldn't see down below that slope anything coming in there or tanks further on down. So we had to relocate these LPOPs right inside the tank farm and just build them up and use the patrolling throughout the jungle to help with a screen. Like I say, you know, it's the area is easily suited to a battalion if they were going to do this correctly. So I had to make, you know, certain calls, and the calls, these were established in some cases on top of the tanks, dug in, and then with trench lines around them so they could protect themselves. And I had a mobile reserve using the heavy machine guns and the tow personnel that could react if we had to in any one of the areas. So at night we'd have 6-man LPOPs in here, plus patrols out, plus stay out. The mortars were down at the CP with myself.
Where's the stay?
Now, the night of the firefight, the stay was over in here,
Okay.
right about in here on this finger.
On the
Off in
forward
this
edge of the finger there.
Right. Because we figured there were a lot of egress routes coming in. There were different ways that they could have been coming in. This is all like jungle up in here, so you really couldn't see the highway. They could easily bring down POVs, you know, slow down, drop people off, and infiltrate this way. They could infiltrate from the Denny station around this way. This is all jungle in here. They come back from Howard Air Force Base, sits back here. They come in from here, this direction, or the town of Arahan down here. I mean, it was all like, you know, it was wide open, and that's how we had to defend. And the mission was, of course, you know, that was our mission. It wasn't go out and fight people. It wasn't go out and, you know, shoot people up. It was, you know, defend the tank farm. And you know, some of these were pretty vulnerable. You know, the potential for a disaster there. I mean, a small sapper team with some demolition sneaking in. I mean, wire up, and you know, boom, you got a pretty big fire, pretty big explosion on your hands. You got the world saying, "Wow, look at that! They got a whole Marine company down there." And boy, we just walked right in there and blew that tank up. And you know, we can do what we want down here. And I think the Marines responded to that pretty well. And they had a lot of pride in themselves. And after the 12 things, it sort of really meshed. No matter what anybody did, it really didn't matter. We knew what we had to do. They became familiar day by day with the terrain out there. They were kept busy. I mean, the hours they put in, because not only were they running day patrols, night patrols, and then getting rest in between, but also building up the fortified positions in and around the area. They had some a mortar capability down there. Didn't know if they were going to use it, but you know, we planned for that. If we got hit again, instead of being exposed out there on the open tanks, we wanted some bunkers put in. You know, there's a million different ways to skin the cat at the time, given the situation, the terrain, what had happened. That was the way we had decided to attack the problem as far as the defense of the tank farm.
How long did that Army battalion, the infantry battalion, stay in?
They stayed there for like 2 days, and what was interesting, that's a whole another story. They were there for like 2 days, and we went back out, I think, 2 days later, and resumed the mission. Then after that, it was like we were out there basically for anywhere from about 2 weeks at a time straight, 14 days, and then it was like time we got an opportunity to come in, and you know, the Marines kind of needed that to come back, get their gear cleaned up, get the weapons cleaned, kind of carrying clean their weapons, gear, equipment. The Marines get the vehicles taken care of, getting charged up again, and then go back out. And we were able to get that with Colonel Connolly, but it was like a 2-day stand down only. 2 days. We come in morning or afternoon, spend the first day getting all cleaned up, second day getting ready, third day we were out again. So basically 2.5 days each time. Initially the Army did it a couple times again with the battalion, but then the Army kind of begged out, they didn't want to do that anymore. So then it became, well, who's going to relieve us? They said, now, since they gave Colonel Connolly all his other assets, they said, work it out, you know, with what you have down there with the MP battalion. So then the MP battalion would come in, same thing, every 14 days, 2 days they come in and they take over our positions. We go back, get cleaned up, and get the troops out.
They were pretty professional, I understand.
The MPs were super, you know, they were really, really good people. The only problem is they had some females in there.
Oh, really?
Not a problem until the first time we started doing exchanges, because a lot of people wanted to operate with us down there. We had Army units that had come in, someone that had flown down there, and they had some extra training time, and they come out there and kind of spend a couple days with us. And get some experience, kind of share a lot of ideas. The Army was super down there from about below the major level. Everything, the captains and lieutenants and the troops, they were all pretty good. We got along real well. But yeah, with the exception of the MP Battalion, the MP Battalion was super. All their colonel was a phenomenal gentleman, real good time. And they had the magazine area across the way, and he'd come in and relieve us. But then the only problem was we'd have to pick up his mission during our stand-down time.
Yeah.
So we did that. So really, it was a stand-down for a couple of days, but it was like a lot of work involved, and we still had to pick up the MP's mission. So I used the platoon that had been back, and I try to rotate a platoon as the MEB reserve every week or so. So a platoon would go in for that week and stand down in the gym, do training, do rehearsals for various MEB operations, do some training with Army units, and then rotate back out the next week and put another platoon. So there was a kind of an internal rotation also, and that worked out pretty well. So we was familiar with everybody else's mission.
What was the MP Battalion's mission?
Protection of the security of the ammunition.
Okay.
And they were like vehicle heavy. Like I was saying earlier, they had a lot of females in there, in the MP Battalion. And the one time they came out to kind of like to assist us, not assist, but train with us. They sent a squad out for a night's operation, and a female showed up. And it was like, when I found out about that, I got a call from the platoon commander. I was like, hey, sorry, yes, the Army showed me here, and squad connection. So they got this female, and she's getting cammied up. I said, what? It's a female down there? And of course, I'm thinking, I don't think General Gray wants females in combat, and the last thing I need is for something to happen out there. And we were augmented by an Army unit with females doing a mission, so I had to go down there and kind of take her back to Colonel Connolly and apologize, and she was pretty much broken up about that because she was really gungy and gung-ho, but it was like there's no way I'm a female out there. And so that kind of like nixed the squads. They didn't come out to play anymore if we couldn't.
After the firefight and all the whole furbaloo on the 12th, did you get any attaboys from General Gray or from?
Oh, it was probably the high point. The high point of the Marine side. There was never any doubt on the Marine side. Never any poo-poo, never any flack, never any nothing. I mean, but battalion commander called me down there after the 12th. I mean, support. When Colonel Carroll came down, the regimental commander, I mean, phenomenal. Every general officer that came down there, to include some of the Army general officers from CONUS, that came out, we had to brief and show what was going on. We're very impressed. The highlight of the whole thing, though, was General Cook when he came down. I mean, phenomenal. I didn't know what to expect. Here's the force commander down here, and I mean, extremely positive, very supportive, understanding, complimentary. Colonel Reiner, who was the head of the Security Force Battalion, was there the night of the firefight, and he was up with myself. Eventually, he worked his way up to me and was there and saw the whole thing, and he was super supportive. A lot of things I got back. I mean, the Marine Corps side knew what was going on. I really don't think there was ever a doubt in the leadership side up here. There was a lot of things going on which I could only guess at as far as the political situation, inter-service rivalry, whatever you want to call it, how they were handling the show down there. It's really not my place to comment upon what I thought the situation was as far as what kind of support we were getting, what the reason why. From the Army side, JTF was kind of like they were kind of uneasy having Marines down there, doing things that Marines do.
They're going to make us fight.
Taking things seriously. When General Cook was down, we briefed him, and he heard the comment about people getting upset because I was leaning too far forward. General Cook's comment with a laugh was, he goes, "God, I guess that's a pretty good compliment." So I mean, people knew what was going on. General Cook was toured all the defenses, talked to the Marines, received a brief, very positive, very upbeat. The only thing he said is that we were still getting kind of acclimatized, so in some cases I was letting patrols go out without flak jackets. And I know that's a big controversy depending on who you talk to. And the general said, okay, but he goes, I better not hear of anybody getting shot down here that was not wearing a flak jacket. Because I was getting, once again, pressure from not pressure, but, you know, comments by the Army that, you know, it's wrong, you know, you're not taking care of your Marines, it's too hot to be in flak jackets. And, you know, we've trained for that. It's a period of acclimatization. We were in Okinawa, we wore flak jackets. I mean, obviously they're not going to stop around, but I saw Corporal Villahermosa, and it got in underneath his flak jacket. And I like to think that, you know, it's not going to stop around, but it's sure going to slow it down, so when it gets inside, it's not going to have that much velocity to go in and around. Like, I guess Villahermosa bouncing off bones, and it just chewed up his whole inside, and he basically bled to death. And but, you know, the Marines became accustomed to it. It was like, you know, no problem at all. But that was another degree of protection. I don't know what these people had, what they were going to do. Wanted to afford them every opportunity to be protected.
What went on exciting the rest of your tour? Was it pretty much pro forma after that?
Yeah, I mean, things really settled down. There were spurts every now and then. We had a couple occasions when intel. There was one night when they had saw a vehicle loaded with mortars, supposedly down near one of the down near the coast, moving toward our position. There was one night they were suspected. For a while, it was kind of tense because we were getting some feedback that yes, there was, you know, some damage done, and people are kind of upset. And knowing the Latino mentality, you know, revenge and everything else, and just all sorts of weird things were being, you know, pushed around. One night it was like they saw a bunch of people moving down in the town of Arahan, one of the little shacks over down a couple miles, and they figured they may be staging for something. You know, things like that on and off, but generally no other really significant events. One night, one of the patrols got shot at again, but nothing significant, nothing came of that.
You know, he must have been pretty cocky when he got back here to Missouri.
What's that?
He must have been pretty cocky. And
the Marines felt that they did a good job, and it was well done.
What did you remain, keep command of the company?
Yeah, well, when I came back, I had it then for about 2 years, so I was, they did a change of command, and I went over to headquarters company, to become the CO of headquarters company, 6 Marines working for Colonel Carroll, who was the regimental commander.
Now, you kept it pretty long time then.
I India for 2 years, basically.
Was that the normal tour for a company commander?
I'm not, it did vary. Yeah, I suppose it could be. You know, around here it's like, just depends what everybody needs, and they could go from a year, 18 months, depending on personnel changes, shifts, who they need, where they need you. I consider myself fortunate to have it that long.
Well, I think we pretty much covered the high points of your tour down there. Lessons learned? You come out with any lessons learned?
I'm going to put together some information for the colonel when I come back. The biggest lessons learned is some of the hard training that was you know, done by the battalion under Colonel Rowland's tenure was you know, paid off really well. The Marines responded very well. They had no problem really with morale or discipline while we were down there. Some of the pre-deployment training we'd recommend is when we were down there was all leaders obviously review a lot of the low-intensity conflict and installation security operations. They needed to do an extensive patrolling package. Focus on patrolling at night, squad-sized patrols, security, emphasis on security and ambush patrols, defensive operation, combat construction, proper conduct and SOPs for listening posts and observation posts. We were called upon at times to be ready for civil disturbance. There are some times where demonstrations are going to be held, possibly the tank farm, possibly aboard Rodman. We're going to need to go in support. So a review of civil disturbance training with gas masks and bayonets was in order. Obviously, POW detainee handling, how to handle POWs should you encounter them out. Proper use and maintenance of night vision devices, all of them, down to the rifleman level. Give people information in classes on the drag-in night site and the tow thermal sites, because we only had a small contingent of drag-in and tow personnel over down. We tried to cross-train some of our Marines so they could break them at night. So the guy wasn't up all day and all night doing looking through thermal devices, night vision devices. night firing of weapons, and night firing of weapons with night vision devices. You know, a lot of focus on that before they came down there. Communications training, all our comm eventually was covered. And that's pretty unusual for a company. All nets covered, but they all were. And some of the basic Marines got pretty good at troubleshooting.
This is Side 1, Take 2 interview with Major Valore.
Proficiency and call for fire, focus on mortars, obviously, because that's all we would have down there, down to the team leader level, fire team levels. Obviously, a review of first aid, stressing foot care because of the climate down there, bee stings, snake bite, heat and casualty treatments, and of course, re-emphasizing the importance of daily personal hygiene. We had very few medical problems down there, and I attribute that to a lot of good leadership by the NCOs and the staff NCOs. Wanted to cross-train as many O3s on the crew-served weapons and maximum shotgun fire, using shotguns, because we had about a dozen shotguns down there that came pretty handy.
What was the weather like?
We went down there, and we were fortunate. We went down there in the, I guess they have a dry and a wet season down there. We went down in basically the dry season. It was just beginning to be the wet season. By the time we left, it was kind of into the wet season. That created its own problems, especially with our fortifications and the drainage problems that you didn't really think about until you got the torrential rains every day down there. Recommended also, obviously, an S2 brief, and there's a lot of information now regarding Panama. General updates, significant events, the order of battle, the special PDF units and equipments and uniforms they were using. The Air Force classes on the AC-130, its capabilities, limitations, and use of a beacon selectable strike, which we got down there working with the special ops people from the Air Force. They were real good about it. Gave us several classes, gave us the use of their TMEG, the beacons, to use in patrols, and we actually work with them about once a week. We practice calling in the bird would circle, focusing the night vision, the infrared beam, which is pretty significant, in various areas, practicing what, coordination between us and them. They knew where our site was, and we had mapped out different locations of positions. The use of burn tape to identify friendly positions. They could identify if they had to fire. The beacon, this beacon selectable strike was an interesting piece of gear. It could give them, without even talking, give them your location. And if it was pre-briefed, you could also change that beacon out there to identify enemy. And they could take that beacon and determine your position, the enemy position, how far, and put accurate fire on the enemy without even talking. So it was pretty interesting.
Where they have the Vulcan guns?
Aspect. Yeah, they had everything to a 105 on here. They had a 105. I was amazed too. 40 millimeter, 20 millimeter.
I was told that the night of the 12th, the intruders had these chemical light sticks, blue light sticks. Do you recall that?
No. I haven't seen that. There was some luminosity that would go on and off out there. In some cases, it looked like a triangle with 3 points. I never figured out what the heck that was down there in the ravine. We were able to use a lot of, test a lot of things. We got to use the Army squadron down there, and they were pretty much on call for us. And periodically they'd fly over in their OH-58s, and we would go up in them. There was only enough room for the pilot and one of my platoon commanders and myself, and we'd go up and fly. And we had them bring like lights, spotlights, flare lights. We'd go and circle around the tank farm, pick up different things. Practice, air coordination with some of the patrols down there using the OH-58. They're real good to work with. We also got a chance to use what's called the Night Sun, which is I guess 500,000 power candlelight power beacon that you can pull a cover over, and it turns into a night vision device, an infrared. And we work with that. You have a joystick to control it. You wear night vision goggles and control this beam around there, and it would show you different things in the jungle. Recommended extensive briefs by public affairs officers prior to coming down, which we got, and we had a real good PAO with us all the time, which helped out a lot, doing a lot of the briefings. We had some speaker systems put in by the Army for use in sort of like psychological operations. We played with those for a while. We had the one that would create a large noise, or one you could speak to. We had Spanish tapes, different messages on there saying, you know, halt, you're in an American military installation, you need to leave the area at this time. And then of course we had the equipment list put out that we felt was relatively important for Marines going down there. We had developed PM kits for the radios, plastic bags with alcohol, Q-tips, brushes, erasers to keep the comm gear clean and PM periodically. The use of expedient antennas, and the training of a lot of the Marines in the in comm procedures, so the basic rifle and radio operators could work all the comm asks, as I mentioned earlier.
You could see the lights from the zone from Rodman and of course across the canal and lighting up the sky, couldn't you, from where you were?
Yeah, depending on some of the higher areas like Sierra Mignon, you could see everything, which was a Air Force receiver site at the very just outside our TAOR down there, the tank farm. But we were pretty much down, although it was like hilly and rolling terrain, most of it was covered by jungle. We could see basically the night lights, but that's about all over in Panama, across the canal.
Did any newsmen come out to the tank farm at all?
Yeah, we had one author that came out. This is well after the 12th, who did a real good job for us. It was interesting, some of the articles that were written while we were down there after the 12th. Some sounded pretty good, some pretty like pro-Noriega. You think Noriega was writing the darn article. But this one guy from San Francisco came out weeks after the firefight and did a pretty good interview with a lot of the Marines down in the company. And we saw the article, I think it was in the San Francisco Chronicle. It was one of Hearst's syndicated papers. And it came out really well. He did a real good job for us. Because probably he came down and talked to the horses' mouths instead of getting third and fourth hand information by people who didn't even know what was going on and what happened.
Who briefed the Air Force PAO? Where did he get his dope from?
I have no idea. No idea. I know we were out there, the counter-intel teams, for a couple of days afterwards, were doing a lot of briefings with myself. The Army came out and they were filming and doing all this other stuff and took a lot of extensive information. He may have gotten some of the information from that.
Well, you can say on a lower level you had good cooperation with both the Air Force
absolutely.
and the Army.
Yeah.
Professionals.
The Air Force were really good. The dog handlers, really super. There were a lot of them were young kids. We got classes on the dog handlers. We used the dogs in static positions from the LPOPs. We actually had the dogs going on patrols. Then the Navy got involved and sent dog handling teams down. We had both Navy and Air Force dog teams going out there, and they were just phenomenal as far as cooperation and support. It was kind of interesting using the dogs in that.
Any Delta Force people come down, or any SEAL people come down?
No, but we had special forces. We had talked with some special forces units. Nothing ever came of that. One night, special forces were doing an operation down behind us in Howard, the Air Force Base. And there was a pretty significant firefight that broke out there, and we had one of their teams up in our CP to make sure there was kind of coordination if they had to pull out, passenger lines, whatever else, coordination of that type. And we listened to a lot of it over the radio that night. They had blowing claymores. They had quite a few rounds went off because they were picked up by another force. One of the Army units, one of the Army MP kids, after the 12th, spotted over in the ammunition dump several people who had fired on him, dressed in black, acting themselves like military personnel. They had fired him, he fired back. They couldn't find any, brass or anything the next day either. But after a while, with the Army Special Forces getting hit down in Howard, and then people started to think more about this. Well, maybe they weren't shooting in shadows, and well, maybe there is some kind of, and well, maybe they're starting to get probed all over by different units that were picking up on it. My general consensus was on it. It appeared like before we came down there it was pretty much like Sleepy Hollow.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, well, we worked with these people for so long, and yeah, there's some political problems up ahead, but, let's not get too wrapped around the axle here, kind of like laissez-faire, and nothing's really kind of like stick your head in the sand, it appeared to us. One of the comments I received by one of the senior commanders down there, as was, I don't even know why you guys are down here. Hell, what I consider security for those tanks out there, I'd be happy putting 2 civilians with a bow and arrow on top of each tank. That would suffice for me.
Was this in the Army?
Well, it was definitely not a Marine that said it, but that was kind of the mentality. And then after, the firefighters, people started, kind of, what's going on here? And then the other instance that came on after that with some of the other units, credibility started to build there. And it was just kind of, perhaps I was naive at the time, it was just kind of disappointing. You go down in a situation like that and you got, certain factions down there, American military factions that aren't really, too cooperative, aren't really supporting you, I think, as they should have.
Well, they had a garrison mentality, and a garrison life was going to be threatened by these bloodthirsty Marines.
It seemed that way, but on the other side, see, we also got put on all the Navy wives over in the housing area, put on a big cookie party. I still got one of the scraps of paper. It had all the kids, the Girl Scouts, and that. Bake a bunch of cookies and put them in bags, and the little notes tied them, we love you, Marines. We appreciate you. We like you here. And that felt good. So it was like a strange situation, but it was interesting. The biggest thing I had going for me was I had some phenomenal staff NCOs and lieutenants and NCOs. I mean, they were really, really good. And all the credit for anything we did down there really goes to them. They really put forth a good effort. I mean, not just the tactics and the weaponry and everything else. I mean, just the leadership, the day-to-day leadership, the dealing with the Marines' problems, the wives at home that were upset, and staff NCOs talking with NCOs, and NCOs talking with Marines. They call, my wife's afraid. I need to go home, and this and that. Just the little things that came up, but kept everything on an even keel. And then I think the fact that they realized we were down there, it was for real. And every time they left the base, it's a lot different than putting a BFA and blanks on and going on a patrol where you got rounds in your chamber. You're getting shot at. You could get shot at, any day. At nighttime, especially the first couple of weeks, it was, the pucker factor was definitely very big, especially given the fact that, we're going into a country with people going against people possibly, but they know this stuff better than we do. They know where we're at probably a lot better than where obviously we know that they are.
Did you have any Vietnam vets in the outfit? If any, they had to be senior staff NCO. Do you have any Beirut vets?
Yeah, there were a couple, but not staff NCOs or officers. I had some NCOs that were in Beirut.
So what you had was a relatively, in a sense, green, unblooded outfit.
I wouldn't say green. They were.
Well, I mean,
they were not combat.
Not combat. So, okay, well that's what I mean.
But as far as training, I mean, they were
very professional.
I felt they were, and the fact that I think somewhere there's some kind of report of what happened. I mean, on the other guy's side down there, but I'm convinced there were casualties, and I'm convinced they were a relatively well organized and well trained unit down there.
I wonder if they got any information, if they found any intelligence when they overthrow Noriega.
I would hope there would be something on that. There was also, interestingly enough, when we were down there, the intel people dug up, and it was passed to us that Noriega had put out through his own forces a word banning anybody to talk about the events of the 12th, period. Within his forces, and that kind of got back, I don't know. However, some of the locals in town that the CIT people were working or had got tips and everything else knew there were some people that were missing now. And the fact that I guess Noriega put out the word, so we got, like, I'm not sure if that's hard and fast, but that's what we were told, that nobody should be discussing the events of the 12th.
Anybody in the unit get any commendations or?
Yeah, fortunately, that was another strange situation. But for the night of the 12th, we wrote up were up to about 8 or 9 Marines, and fortunately, they all eventually got rewarded. There was some really fine performances that night. The mortar section did wonders. My first sergeant was phenomenal.
Would they get combat awards?
I mean, it was interesting. The first sergeant and myself got bronze stars with combat Vs, which I don't know how that happened. Everyone else, we put them in for combat Vs on there. They got Navy comms and Navy achievement medals, and they all got those, but they, for whatever reason, refused to put any distinguishing device on, which I was a little disappointed in that. I put my first sergeant in for a Navy comm, and Commar 4 upgraded that, and I guess he put me in for the same thing also. And I was shocked when that came through. It's the last thing in the world I would ever expect.
Good show.
But all the Marines got their awards first. It's like kind of interesting now. I keep getting calls. The biggest thing was interesting, the Marines, the two biggest questions the Marines had while we were down there, kind of shows you kind of some of the mentality. And to this day, some of it's still going on. But when we went down there, we didn't know how long we were going to be down there. And of course, everybody wants to know like how long it's going to be so you can tell their wives. We went down there, initially it was like you could be there from 2 weeks till nobody knows. Then it was like maybe 3 months. They were talking about 6-month deployments, but nobody knew for the longest time until they finally decided exactly what, how long the tour was going to be. And that was kind of like the big question, like how long is it going to be? Any word yet, sir? The other thing was, especially after the 12th, it's like, hey, sir, are we going to get anything for this? I mean, are we going to get anything for this? Like, those are their main concerns. I mean, nothing else. All the stuff they were going through, and it was demanding for 3 months. Just the changing rules of engagement, the pressure, the arduous mission, the terrain started getting bad, and they were worked long and hard every day. And no complaining, nothing. The only questions they always had was until they got resolved was like, how long are we down here? And the next thing was, are we going to get anything? And what they were looking for is obviously something to show that they were down there and did a good job. And to this day, I don't understand why.
Did you get hazardous duty pay or combat pay?
We got one for 1 month. I'm not sure if that was a mistake or what, but the colonel once again put us in for hostile fire pay, and we got it for the 1 month. And we're also put in for the combat action ribbon. But to this day, yes, that's a big, I don't know. And that's the only thing that I really feel bad about, for the Marines. They really deserve that. And what's in a ribbon, who knows? But for the kids that go down there,
It makes a lot of difference.
yeah, it makes all the difference in the world. And here we are, 2 years, going on 2 years away from that, and no mention of it. Expeditionary medals, nothing. And I still get Marines from the audience. I bump into them, one of these days, so I hear anything yet about, combat action or the.
Have you been able to find out whether or not?
Expeditionary medal. It's like it. I mean, they did that for 3 months, as all the other companies did. All the fine performance they turned down at Just Cause and everything else. And the Marines are ready. All the long hours, preparation, all the air alert drills, all the missed time for the families, all the deployments, everything else. They're good Marines. Did a good job down there. And I mean, what's in a combat action? I mean, what's in an expeditionary medal? And like expeditionary medals have been given out to units sitting on a ship
Doing
for
nothing.
a couple days,
Yeah.
floating off a coast they can't even see. You got expeditionary medals. You hear these kids go down there, put their life on the line for 3 months in arduous conditions, and it's like, nothing. And I know some of the senior officers have been pushing for it, and won it. When we first got down there, and if you read some of the requirements, because my first sergeant looked into a lot of it too, because he's doing his first sergeant job down there. If nobody else is going to take on the issue,
He put in the recommendation.
see what's going on. He kept notes, who was where, who was doing what on the night of the 12th. Looked up a lot of the awards manuals. I'm like, hey, as far as the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, reading, it seems like the troops rate it. In combat action, I would think they rate it. Kind of question is how can I get a Bronze Star and a First Sergeant Bronze Star combat Vs, and yet the Marines that were there, aren't getting the combat action ribbon. I mean, they give us hostile fire pay for 1 month,
Yeah.
but the Marines aren't getting combat action ribbons.
Have you taken it up with anybody?
I've asked, like the commanders, and but nothing, any higher than that. It's like certain things you kind of expect, people
To be
up
done.
the chain where those kind of decisions are being made. I mean, to make them, and when you look at what the Marines put into it, I think it just doesn't track sometimes.
I think it might be a political decision.
It's kind of sad.
Well, the Army ran out of combat infantryman's badges for Operation Just Cause.
Yeah, there's other units that were down there that have exchanged fire before Just Cause. I mean, we get down there, and you think, every other operation, it's like, okay, they kind of wait till things kind of cool down, then they put in a little blurb, and it's like, from this period of time to that period of time, if you were down in this area doing this, you rate, whatever the expedition, the combat action. I haven't heard anything about it, and now it's pushing 2 years. I was hoping now that Just Cause was over with, things are kind of back to normal down there. What's the political problems? They can slide it in with everything else, because all the Marine companies that were down there, I think, were exposed to fire at least one time.
Yeah. I got to write up a report, and it may wind up at the Commandant's office. Well, I've taken up nearly 3 hours of your time. I've enjoyed it.
So I appreciate the opportunity.
And I think you had a unit that you can be proud of what you did, and I'm impressed. I knew what you'd done because I've been told about it before, and you must be very proud of the unit that you had and what you did.
And it's amazing. Just being at the right place at the right time, and by the grace of God, you're able to do, the right thing. I was blessed, really, with some really, like I said, fine NCOs and staff NCOs and some really good officers, and they all pulled together like champs. It was good, and I was real proud of them. And I think everybody that you ask anybody, anytime, what happened, when and where, and they'll tell you right out what happened, how it went down, and they're convinced, and that actually almost became a rallying point down there. It's like, hey, screw everybody else. We got the company really became extremely tight.
Us against the world.
Yeah, basically, and that's what we did. Hey, it ain't gonna bother us. No whining about it. No, hey, that's the way you feel about it. Great. And that, I think, was one of the other reasons that they're looking forward, or they were looking forward to some kind of recognition, like the Expeditionary Medal or a combat action, but especially. Because if that crap ever came up with them, well, the shadow shooters and this, that, they can just say, hey, say what you want, but I don't think I would have gotten this if it was all a bunch of baloney.
Were you deep selected for Major?
No.
No. You came up in turn.
Yeah. And it was a lot more fun being a company commander.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, Joe, thanks a lot. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Good for
Thanks
the record.